Hey everyone, it's Justin again. In this lesson, we're going to review some information about types of angles and triangles before introducing some new vocabulary and characteristics of right triangles. The goal of this lesson is to help build the vocabulary that we'll need to be able to talk about the Pythagorean theorem effectively. You'll want your notes template with you to fill out as we go throughout this lesson. If you haven't printed it yet, pause this video, print it out, and come back when you're ready to go. By the end of this lesson, you will be able to classify and label parts of a triangle. First, we'll review identifying a triangle's type by its angles. Next, we'll learn and practice naming the sides of a triangle. Finally, we'll learn and practice identifying the legs and hypotenuse of a right triangle. Hopefully you remember what we've learned about the types of angles from your prior courses. But just in case, we'll do a little review here. There are three types of angles: acute angles, right angles, and obtuse angles. A right angle makes a perfect corner. We measure angles by their degrees, and right angles all have a measure of 90 degrees. You'll hear the description of right angle and 90-degree angle both used for this. I bet you see right angles every day. Can you think of any places near you right now that have right angles? Some examples might be the corner of a door where your walls meet your ceiling or floor, or maybe even the corner of a table or desk. In fact, if you have good posture, you should be making a right angle right now between your upper body and the tops of your legs. Acute angles are less than 90 degrees. There's less space in between the two sides than there is in a right angle. Obtuse angles are greater than 90 degrees, so there's more space between the two sides than there is in a right angle. If you're ever not sure, it can be helpful to imagine drawing in a guideline that makes a perfect right angle to compare to. Now that we've reviewed the types of angles, let's talk about how we can use those terms to classify a triangle. An acute triangle is a triangle whose three angles are all acute. An obtuse triangle is a triangle in which one of its angles is obtuse. Just one, though. It's actually not possible to have more than one obtuse angle and bring your lines together into a triangle. If you don't believe me, try drawing a triangle with more than one obtuse angle to see what happens. We can tell that this top angle is obtuse by comparing it to an imaginary right angle. A right triangle is any triangle that has one right angle. We can never assume that an angle is right based on what it looks like, though. We either need to be told in the description or need to have this little box included in the angle in the diagram. This box signifies a right angle. Now that we know how to classify a triangle, let's discuss how we can talk about its specific parts. When we need to talk about a triangle, things can get confusing very quickly. If you try describing, say, that side on top or that angle on the bottom left, it's helpful to establish a common language so that there is a clear way to talk about each part of the triangle. To do this, we usually label each vertex or point on the triangle with a letter to give it a name that we can use. Naming these vertices also helps us name the sides of the triangle. For example, this side can be called side AB or side BA because it's the side between these two vertices. We use the notation of the little line on top of the letters to show that this name refers to a line segment. Sometimes you may see a side labeled with a lowercase letter. In this case, and most cases, we use the same letter as the vertex that is across from the side to name it. If it's labeled in your diagram, you can also use this name for your side. Let's add lowercase c to our list of names for this side of the triangle. Since this label was created just for this side of the triangle, and we aren't talking about a segment between 2 points, it does not need the little line on top for notation. How about this side of the triangle? Can you figure out one or even two names for this side? Did you come up with capital AC or capital CA? If we include the label of lowercase b, we could also call this side B. Let's try this last side, and let's add in that last lowercase a as a side label. Try to come up with all three possible names for this side. How'd you do? Right triangles have a lot of special properties that you'll continue learning about throughout your future math classes. We're going to discuss the first special property right now. The sides of right triangles can be named in the ways that we just discussed, but they also have special names. The two sides that create the right angle are called legs. Another way that you can think of this is that the legs are the two sides that meet in the corner of the right angle. The last side, which is always going to be across from the right angle, is called the hypotenuse. That's a funny word. Try to say that out loud with me. Hypotenuse. Hypotenuse. It's okay if that takes some practice. Now, right angles won't always be arranged so nicely for you. They can be oriented in all different ways and look very different. Don't let that fool you, though. As long as you have a right angle, shown by the square in the corner, we know it's a right triangle. No matter what the right triangle looks like, these facts never change. The legs are the sides that make the right angle, and the hypotenuse is the side across from the right angle. Make sure you have this written down in your notes template. We're almost there. We've learned the different parts of a right triangle, so now let's practice. Can you name the hypotenuse of this triangle? Now, does your answer match one of mine? The hypotenuse is across from the right angle. Since this side is between the vertices L and M, we could call it either LM or ML. Don't forget to put the little line on top for notation. We could also just use lowercase n since it was included on our diagram. As long as you have one of these answers, you are correct. You don't need all of them to be correct, but it is good practice. Now, how about the legs? Take a moment to name both of them. Check your answer. It does not matter which way you named each leg, as long as you have some combination of n with m or lowercase l by itself for one leg, and some combination of l with n or lowercase m by itself for the other leg. Let's try another one. Can you name the hypotenuse of this triangle? Uh-oh. Did you catch that this is a trick question? There's no right angle in this triangle, so it doesn't have a hypotenuse, or legs for that matter. Okay, let's try one more. Before I even ask, double check. Does this triangle have a hypotenuse and legs? Yes, we do have a right angle, so we do have a hypotenuse and legs. Now that we've established that, take a moment to identify the hypotenuse and the legs. We weren't given any lowercase labels this time, so you should only have two different answers for each of them. Try to come up with both names for each leg and the hypotenuse. Now, check to see if your answer matches mine. If it doesn't, go ahead and rewind a little to watch this section again. Now you can classify a triangle by its angles, which helps us determine if we have a right triangle. For right triangles, you can now identify its legs and hypotenuse. This skill is very important for our next lesson, so make sure you are confident before you move on. See you next time! Hey.